really critically about it. So, away.
Hello everyone, my name is Sheng-Yi. This is the QR code of the PPT. I am an HDR student and my supervisor is Sheng-Yi. We are from Federal Institute of Science Education, National Taiwan Normal University in Taiwan. Okay. Today I want to introduce about cultivating critical thinking for the area of rapid information. And I focus on teacher training and curriculum development about how to embed critical thinking into science education. Okay, why critical thinking is important? Because in the 21st century, there are vast amount of information coming. For example, fake scientific news or short clips on social media such as YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. Also, in the last few years, there are lots of generative AI that produce a lot of information such as GPT, Cloud, or Gemini. So among this information, how to evaluate that? Critical thinking that can help identify useful information and can integrate the information. We can enhance our life. Also, among critical thinking is a large term, and scientific thinking and critical thinking they flourish each other. So, and this, in the literature, some say that scientific thinking and critical thinking they are symbiotic. They vary in terms and they vary in the application, but they possess share same elements. Okay, so if we design course on critical thinking into science classroom, we can add students critical thinking and reasoning. Also, in the classroom, teachers play a vital role, right? So a teacher's perspective may influence how they develop their critical thinking curriculum plans, and also affect the ways they instruct students. So if teacher professional development TPD help to teach with higher quality, because every teachers have different experience. So if they can share their experience to each other, they can get higher quality of education. As a result, my research question number one is that what are the views of in-service and free-service teachers? They have different experience of teaching. So what are the views of them on critical thinking? So what do they think about critical thinking? And the second is, how will a teacher develop their scientific critical thinking lesson plans in the TPD? And research question 3 is, how do teachers provide feedback on others' critical thinking lesson plans in the TPD? So to answer research question 1, what is critical thinking? I refer from several literature. There are 2 dimensions of critical thinking. One is called critical thinking skills or critical thinking abilities. The other is critical thinking dispositions. So when faced with new information, how do we critical think about that? We need to know what it is, right? So we need to interpret the information. What is the information? Okay, and we need to analyze the structure of the information. What is the claim? What is the evidence? Okay, and also the information is credible or not. We need to evaluate it, and we should explain what is the mechanism inside the information. Also, we need to infer it. What will be the outcome of this? And last but not least, if we self-regulate while we are critical thinking, and next time we can improve ourselves. But if we have high critical thinking skills, but we don't use it, it's a pity, right? So we need a critical thinking disposition. It means the tendency we will use critical thinking skills. So there are several things that will influence it, such as open-mindedness, inquisitiveness, systematicity, analyticity, maturity, truth-seeking, and self-confidence. So we need high critical thinking disposition to use critical thinking skills to face with the new era. Okay. There are several curriculum guidelines that embed with critical thinking. Take Taiwan as an example. We can see that there's like a learning progression in the curriculum guideline in Taiwan. You can see that from age 7 to age 18, there are 12 basic education in Taiwan. From age 7 to age 7 to from age 7. From age 7 to age 12, you can see this in elementary school, and it's the same schools. And age 13 to age 15 in junior high school, and age 16 to age 18 senior high school. And there are 6 years in the elementary school, and the first stage is a low grade. We anticipate students can simply distinguish or classify and observe natural science phenomena, for example, to see, to touch, or to smell. And the second stage, age 9 to 10, we anticipate that students can record and classify data or information and evaluate. So they need to record something, put the data to their maybe like pen and pencils. And the age 11 to 12, the high grade in elementary school, students can critical assess data using the content knowledge, for example, physics, biology, chemistry, and provide their personal explanation. But to adolescents age 13 to 15, students may maintain reasonable skepticism toward own scientific data and offer their own opinions. What does it mean? If students conduct an experiment, they will get the data themselves, right? So is the data true or not? Maybe in the elementary school, they will always believe it is true, but in age 13 to 15, we anticipate that they can doubt about their own data. And also in age 16 to 18, senior high school, we anticipate that students can compare from different viewpoints. For example, I agree and you did not agree. I have my evidence and you have your evidence. I can challenge you, you can challenge me. This we can think from different viewpoints. We can explore our evidence, challenge others' ideas. Okay, regarding how to train or collaborate among teachers, we can refer to the code model. This can divide into 3 stages. One is called EE, the lecture, study, and demonstration. They can, for example, if they embed technology in, and the lecturer start to demonstrate what can we embed critical thinking into the curriculum. And the second call, the participants start to cooperate with each other. So they may co-tech using the technology, or the second is they can co-design. They can design together to, for example, embed critical thinking into classroom. And you can see that this one, and they can co-teach the module. So they can teach each other how to use this module. And after the second stage, it's like a cycle. After this, they may the participants start because they present to each other, they can feed others feedback, debriefing what they have learned. So this is the code model. Okay. Regarding the methodology of this study, I think the participants in Taiwan. There are 46 pre-service and 53 in-service teachers provide their critical thinking thoughts, and 14 pre-service teachers and 29 in-service teachers provide their lesson plans. Also, the process of the workshop is based on the core model. The first, the lecturer demonstrate how to use the platform CCR, and the questionnaire about critical thinking thought is also asked. And the critical thinking introduction in the demonstration part. And the second, participant co-take, co-design, and co-teach the scientific critical thinking lesson plans. Also, participants in the third part, they debrief what they learned, curriculum plans, PowerPoint presentation, and get peers feedback. And this is the platform we use. You can type ccr.tw. It is, we don't need to install it as an add-on, so you just type it. And it is free now and forever. It is an instant response system, interact with students and teachers. If we are teachers, we have no barrier to design our own courses. We have multiple language, over 15 language supported. There are over 100,000 teachers and millions of records. Okay, this is the material used in the first D. You can see that, for example, scientific short clips. We can find, because in Taiwan, you can find some information on Taiwan Checkback Center. For example, some people say that we cannot eat pineapples with mango, nuclear radish, and they provide maybe some reason, but that is not true. Also, this year in Taiwan, there is an earthquake in Hualien, and someone said that the earthquake is someone used nuclear bomb, so the earthquake happened. Many people believe it, but it's also checked by the center. It is wrong. Okay, this is the material last year, LK 99, and some superconductor material. But last year, some people believe it and pay a lot of money into the stock market, but lose their money. And also in Taiwan, social scientific issues is important. For example, whether to build a power plant or not. These are the material we can use. Also, okay, this is the example of how to embed critical thinking into science education. You can see that the left one is nuclear bomb explosion, wave detection. And the start, you can see that the strength is stronger than the later, right? But if it is natural earthquake, for example in Japan, the start is smaller, the later is stronger, the strength. So if you only see this is wave detection in Hualien, we can see the pattern. If we only see the pattern, we will believe it is nuclear bomb explosion test or natural earthquake. It's quite like the nuclear bomb explosion, right? So, but if we critically think about it and embed with some content knowledge, we will see something. You can see that this is another wave detection in Taiwan early. The difference between this is the distance. This one, the distance 15 kilometers, and this one over 100 kilometers. So the pattern is different. Why? Because there are two kind of waves. One is called P wave, and the other is S wave. P wave is quicker, but S wave is slower but stronger. So in Hualien, the distance is close. So the P wave and S wave arrive near the same time. Delta T is small. But this one, when the P wave arrive and S wave arrive, the delta T is large enough to distinguish with them. So we need to embed some content knowledge to critically think about some information. So we will not mislead by social medias. Okay. And this is the data collection question part, we collect 3 kinds of data: perspective, critical thinking, lesson plans, and feedback. We use content analysis or bottom-up analysis. And regarding research question 1, what are the views of in-service and pre-service teacher on critical thinking? We can see that in-service teacher emphasize very less on these positions. It's a pity because if we don't use critical thinking, we will not critical think about it, even though we have high critical thinking skill. But it is reasonable because critical thinking is more, as skills is more concrete that teachers will want students to enhance. Also, the research question 2, how will teachers develop their critical thinking lesson plans? You can see that this is how they embed critical thinking into the lesson plans. You can see that aligned with research question 1 finding that in-service teachers embed more on critical thinking skills. But interpretation part is not like that. Why? Because interpretation, the question is easy to ask. For example, what is the information? What is the structure of that? So it's easy to ask. So maybe with experience, in-service teacher can embed more on deeper critical thinking skills such as analysis, evaluation, inference. But we can see self-visualization part. This one, because we need more time, and so in the PPT, maybe they did not provide more on self-regulation. And to the right, to this, you can see that this position, how they embed it. Most of the in-service teachers embed less on critical thinking this position. And I want to emphasize more on this one, self-confidence in reasoning. This is an important part of this, but we found that in Taiwan, there's teachers maybe not give confidence to the students. So I think it is a pity because if we embed more confidence to the student, they will have higher confidence to reason in critical part. Okay, and about research question 3, how do teachers provide feedback on lesson plans? Okay, we can see that there are several themes appear, such as time arrangement, lesson structure. This is the teaching strategy. And the content, like subject content, like earth science or critical thinking knowledge, like skills. Also, there's motivation part. For example, we want students to interested in it. Okay, this is we conclude about something. And the first part, if we see in-service teachers should focus more on these positions, and pre-service teachers maybe on critical thinking skills because they need more experience. And we need to emphasize on self-regulation. Also, we need to emphasize on self-confidence. If they have more confidence, they will use their critical thinking skills. And the data analysis part, maybe in the future, because there's some data in the presentation, maybe academics network analysis, we can apply that. Also, we can conduct semi-constructual interviews with in-service and pre-service teachers to get more about their critical thinking. So, okay, thanks for your listening. This is our presentation.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. And sorry. Now we have plenty of time for questions and discussion. So think about some of the things that the really important issues that we've got about the way that not only we teach critical thinking, but also the way that we actually understand the way that pre-service teachers and students and teachers, existing teachers, start to develop that. So the kind of development of critical thinking is a really important thing I think to see here. But questions?
I have a question. How do you correct your critical thinking data from pre-service?
I actually I asked some questions. Let's see that this. I collect three kinds of data. The first is their perspective for them. So I use CCR and I design some questionnaire on it. For example, I ask, what do you think about critical thinking? What it is? I didn't expect them to answer based on the framework, but their answers will be coded into, like, for example, critical thinking skills or dispositions. So this is the questionnaire. And also, I use content analysis to code them into skills and disposition. The second is the lesson plans. You can see they provide their lesson plans. I also code them into critical thinking skills or disposition. And the other is the feedback part. Maybe they will provide some feedback, and I will call them like this, such as a thematic approach. Okay. And I can give you some example of their lesson plans. For example, they may design in critical thinking. There's someone use Socratic questioning or student-centered approach. Maybe argument, or the pre-survey teacher design all games. They design, for example, critical thinking college, or ask students to ask some critical thinking questions. Or they use, maybe in Taiwan, the native animals and invasive species facing an issue in Taiwan. And this is from in-service teacher. It is interesting because that teacher center, they also ask some Socratic question, but student center, because they are really in the school, right? So maybe there's some problem in the school, so they may use problem-based learning. For example, there's some school in Taiwan, the strawberry issue there, Miaoli. So they take this as an topic, or they may take in their school, then maybe the restroom space is not fully used, so they want to analyze that. So they make students to analyze that. Or some schools, the leftover food is kind of important problem need to solve, so they provide this as a problem-based learning. Also, with self-regulation, that is an important, but we didn't emphasize it, right? But some teachers, especially in-service teachers, they use self-assessment. They use the prompt to ask in the paper. They ask students to serious recall phenomena such as this as the self-regulation part.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, or you want to?
I mean, just staying with the problems that the students generate, the pre-service teachers generated when they were actually in schools working. What was the process of finding and developing it? Obviously, they came up with these ideas on the basis of this. Did they have a chance to workshop those ideas with their peers or with lecturers to gradually develop the kind of problems that they posed? Or were they just presented to the students in the classroom?
You mean in this classroom?
Yeah. So when they thought about issues with leftover school food lunches, which is obviously a thing to think about, did they just work with that with their students, or did they actually refine their ideas?
Oh yes. Actually, in the decode model, if we only to this or this, they in the workshop we can finish that. But in the final, there is a decoder. We need to in the real classroom. So because pre-service teacher they have less chance to in the school, but in-service teacher they have more time. They spend their time in school. So pre-service teacher, they maybe did not. This is only in the workshop. Most of them is only in the workshop, but these they are in the real context. They really implement it in the classroom. So they really get some suggestion from students.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for a very engaging presentation, Jenny. Really nice. The concept of the symbiotic relationship between scientific thinking and critical thinking really struck me. Your earthquake example is really good for making that clear. And I wonder how, for protecting our students from fraudulent ideas about health and things like that, so people trying to sell them products that don't work, all of those kind of things. So can you talk a little bit about that relationship between the scientific content knowledge and the critical thinking skills and dispositions?
Okay. Actually, critical thinking is a large topic, but someone in the literature, someone think of domain specific, for example, physics domain or chemistry domain or a biology domain, and someone think about it in general. So in my framework, I use general, but maybe thanks for your question. Maybe in the future, I will learn more about domain specific, because in science education, the domain is important, right? So maybe how to build content and critical thinking. This is important part. I need to further research for your question, because scientific thinking skills and critical thinking skills, someone said that's symbiotic. So maybe in the future I can do. or do anyone have?
Yeah, I think what David was talking about, I really had the idea of that P wave and S wave without the content knowledge. Even though the teacher asked, "What's wrong with this?" interpret or critical thinking about this, I wouldn't have any clue whatsoever if I did not know P wave and S wave and what's the impact of that in interpreting it, right? So critical thinking is embedded in the content knowledge, right? Instead of just giving the question, teacher has to scaffold the students to think critically and bring in the content knowledge, right? So when you think about developing critical thinking skills in students, what kind of prompt did you ask the pre-service or in-service teachers to consider to scaffold students' thinking of the phenomena or data critically? So I think that is what David was talking about, right?
It's even more complicated than that, really, because there's a developmental question here. Obviously, without content, you can't critically think. So it's got to be some content, but that content is gradually developing. And gradually, as students move through, and you can sort of see it with the developmental sequence that's in curriculum. It's a really nice developmental sequence. You can see how that content knowledge is increasing, so therefore they can take on more sophisticated critical thinking. But there's a question of a research question to think about: how is that interaction occurring? What do we see? Just getting more content doesn't improve. We can see that again and again, critical thinking. But so it's not a dependent relationship. It's an important relationship. The other really interesting thing here is the discipline, because obviously what is critical thinking is different in different disciplines. The way I think critically as a physicist is different from the way a biologist thinks critically. And God help us if we're talking art history or something like that. So there's some really interesting questions there.
I think the nature of evidence, like in the discipline specific, the nature of evidence that one looks at, and then the content comes also from that history of evidence that has sort of, like developed throughout, and then you want the students to understand also the history of how the content and how to get it more in depth in it. Because you could learn like about waves, but learn just as an algorithm.
History is actually a really important issue there, isn't it? So the way we think in physics is really based on reasoning that Galileo and Newton undertook. in the, that classical thing. So we think about the relationship between the mathematization of the evidence that we do in a way that's different from, say, a biologist thinks about, because they come through a history of Linnaeus and Darwin, and putting together evidence in quite different ways. So yeah, I think that's a really important issue, point actually.
Actually, but I would think that the ability to think critically, interpret, analyze, and influence explanation, there are more content. We need more content knowledge. But evaluation and self-regulation, maybe we do not need lots of content knowledge. We can self-regulate when I think critically, and we can evaluate the resource, such as it's from the government or from someone only uploading online. So maybe there are many sub skills, and some of them based heavily on content knowledge. But critical thinking disposition, this part, maybe the content is not so very important. We can ask students to think 3 seconds later.
Thank you for your nice presentation. I have 2 questions. I really liked your decode model. First, I wonder if you have more modules like earthquake to demonstrate the critical thinking lessons. And second question is you talked about ENA, explain network analysis. So how will you use the epistemic network analysis with your data?
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I just know about EMA this year, but I think it is very interesting. So
Perhaps an explanation of ENA to those people who haven't used it before would be useful here.
Yeah.
Epistemic network analysis, it collects maybe dialogue between, for example, this classroom. Everyone says a sentence, right? They will code it into a sentence. They code the sentence into coding and find a relationship. For example, critical thinking analysis after interpretation, maybe like the link between the skills and also the dispositions. But maybe in the future, because I collect the data from the presentation, maybe I can find a relationship between these.
Okay, the first question, do you have another demonstration material for, like the earthquake? You have more, you have developed more kind of demonstrations.
The material or
Examples like this one.
this one? Or
No, the earthquake one. So you demonstrated earthquake lesson to the teachers.
yes.
Yeah, so I wonder if you have developed another materials like this.
Yes, but I didn't put it on the PowerPoint. But there's like this one, scientific short clips. We ask teachers about how to what according to maybe like influence analysis. We saw in the beginning, for example, the Mongo one, we asked the participants what is this is the boss. He said some words. He said we cannot eat pineapple with mango because some serious problem will happen. But that is mistake. So the lecturer asked the participant what is the claim of the boss. Maybe the claim of boss say that we can eat mango, but why? So the next question will be some such as Socratic question. We ask the participant to use critical thinking and be critical and be some kind of content knowledge into the critical thinking process, such as that is. So there's a different part. For example, this is K99. This is a scientific test. We put the news on it. So the participants will read the news and they will find some problem in the news, and they need to critical think about the news and answer based on it. Yes.
And last question.
I was interested in the professional development model, the one that you showed, the decode. And I know you say that you think with semi-structured interviews you will know more about like the differences, but from your sense, how are the differences between the pre-service and the in-service teachers? Like, how can you explain those differences based on this model? Like, where do you think, for example, like the variations come, like how, in other words, how does this model going to inform your next PD?
Because I use platform at CCI, I found that in the first demonstration we pre-service, because there's different workshop, one for pre-service and the other for in-service. In the demonstration part, everybody does it, but in the core part, they use technology. We found that pre-service teacher learn very quick about this, but in-service teacher, maybe they have less experience with technology, so maybe they learn about it more time. But in the design and core teach part, in-service teacher pay more. Also, in the debriefing part, we found that pre-service teacher debrief more, they give more feedback to others, so they can enhance more quickly. But in-service teacher, because the context is very different from each school, because they use problem-based learning, so the content is very different. So they really discuss with other school, but your suggestions. Yeah.
Thanks very much. Thanks. And we'll just get started for the next one. Thank you.